So we're soon approaching the 80th anniversary of the very brave attack on 3 dams in the Ruhr during the Second World War. So it seems like a really good time to do a first impressions of a dambusters Lancaster. Right, everybody start humming God is Our Strength and Refuge. So some of you may know and some of you may not, but in 1955 when they made the very famous The Dambusters film, the tune they used came from the hymn God is Our Strength and Refuge. It's a very famous tune and I actually had it played at my wedding. So let's take a quick look at the box. We have our Airfix red box. It tells us it's 1/72 scale. We've got one paint option, but we've got decal options for more than one variant. As you can see there, we've got our bouncing bomb slung underneath and some lovely artwork of a lot of water being exploded. Now I think when this was originally released it did actually come with a model of a dam. I'm not sure, I think it might have been vac formed. I don't believe that's included anymore, but I haven't looked in here since I first got it, so I can't really remember. So on the side here we've got some computer generated images of what could be in the box, and if we go around the sides we have the top box information again, so it can go on a shelf and be read, and then at this end we have our paint schemes and our paint shout outs, and it tells us it's a skill level 3, and I think it came with 2 flying hours, might have been 3, I can't remember now. Right, let's start with our instructions, and we have the usual contemporary Airfix format of an A4 colour booklet that is stapled, and in the top there we can see we've got some history, and we've got specification of the aircraft there, and the usual notice at the bottom about washing your parts, and then that carries on through there. Just remove the decals, and then we have our basic assembly instructions, study the drawing, so on and so forth, and our key. And then we're straight in to our build, which unusually does not start straight away with the cockpit. That is definitely the bomb bay. So we're starting with building up the bomb bay, steps 1 and 2, and on the top of those we have our wing roots going on top. So this is going to form the structural piece of the model. We've got some geometry there, which is nice to see. We then move to the cockpit. We have a pilot and a seat that all seems to be moulded in one. I can't see that there's any moulded on strapping for the pilot, so that if you're not putting the pilot in, you're going to have to put your own harnesses in, basically, is what I'm getting to there. 2-piece seat. So again, you'd have to put something in there if you're leaving without a pilot, just to dress it up a little bit. Steering going in, and then that is being mounted into our base, so that all makes sense now, doesn't it? Then we've got the pedals being mounted on. We've got a decal there for that, which has been painted matte black, and that goes in against that corner post there. So that's our first bit done, first page done, and we've got a little bit of cockpit and the bomb bay. As we move to 11, we've got more painting instructions. Interesting that it's pointing out those should be black when that's all black anyway, but they're using their traditional method of glazing from the inside. Now you could choose to do that with some micro crystal clear. So we'll have to have a look when we look at the parts and see what we think. Quite often with these thick little bits of clear parts, you get a little bit of sink. So it'll depend on the quality of the parts there, I think. Got quite a few little bits to cut away. I imagine that's because this is the dambusters version and we're using a non-dambusters version aircraft. So there are some changes made that basically tried to make the aircraft a lot lighter for carrying the weight of the bouncing bomb at all that distance. So then we can see there's two little slots there, and we're passing the wing supports through there. And we've got some more parts going into the nose cone, being painted up, more decals. We've got the map table there with a map on, which is a nice touch, and some details there, the little chair on the post and the end of the table. So quite a nice, I mean, there are 3 steps there on just building up the map table, individual colours being picked out. So with the decal on there should look quite nice. Obviously you can look at your references and maybe detail that. How visible it is once it's all in place, don't know. Seems to be a part to remove there, so clearly a modification. Turning over, that gets us to step 17. We can see the map table going in there. Then we're building up a light machine gun that's going to go in the, well, towards the tail. It's not actually in the tail. Some tail lights going in. So that's an option depending on whether you're doing paint scheme A or B, which we'll look at in a minute. Then we've got a little, I think that was a fold down seat as I remember. More decals, more glazing on the other fuselage half. 2 fuselage halves come together. Then we've got some support struts and the like going round where the engine nacelle will be, I guess. Yeah, and that's where the landing gear is going to go as well. So nice to see some detail going in there. It's all being pre-painted as we put the wing in. So it looks like we've got moulded in flaps at this point. Step 27, we've got some wing lights going in. The upper part of the wings, and then, is that the upper? No, sorry, I beg your pardon, that's the lower part of the wings, I do beg your pardon, on both sides. Then we're building up the tail flaps. That looks like the radiators for the engines maybe. Yeah, there we go, going into the engine nacelles, air vents there at the back. Nice that they're showing you how that should sit. Then we've got some little separate parts going on. So that means that we'll have a nice level of detail because it's not all moulded in. Repeating that process again for more of the engines. So we're doing 4 engines obviously. Putting the first 2 in, then putting the second set in. So there are differences because only 2 of them have landing gear. Then we've got an option, landing gear up. You're cutting that part off to close it down. So if you want to put it on a stand, you can do, although it's not mentioned any modifications for a stand. So you'd have to do that yourself. So we can see all that going together, and then if you're doing wheels down, we've got quite complex painting instructions there for the landing gear. You've got what, 1, 2, 3 different colours going into that, which is nice. More parts of the landing gear, different colours again. Then you've got more parts of the landing gear, all being painted up. So this is going to look very authentic, I think. Looks really quite nice, doesn't it? And then we've got a nice little picture of how that should all look built up. So yeah, why would you want to miss having all that on display? That looks lovely. Then we've got an option for landing flaps, open or close. That's good. I thought we weren't going to get it, but we are. And then yeah, so clearly we have the options there. Needs a little bit of surgery if we're doing that. And that's following through on both wings. Then we're putting some of the upper wing parts in. So that's nice. That means you're going to get a nice, clean, good fit. They've thought about that and engineered it so that it all molds well enough to fit together crisply. So that's really nice. Some more painting instructions. As we turn over, we do have stand options here. Now, I haven't seen this before, so this is really interesting. They've got the 2-hole stand version and the slot stand version. The slot stand version is the one that you can readily get available from the Airfix shop. So yeah, and they do a range of sizes, so they do a big one that'll take a 172 bomber. So there's nothing stopping you putting it on a stand and still having the wings down as if it's coming into land. So or taking off indeed, as it's got a bomb on board. So that's a nice little thing to do, and worth noting that that's going to cover all of that, so don't bother painting it. And we've got this little structure going in, and these I'm guessing are extra parts to allow for the bomb to be mounted. And we're closing up some of the bomb base structure. We've got some extra parts going in there, and then we're moving to tail wheel and the large front wheels, and they are huge. They appear to be weighted, which is good to see. Whether they've accounted for the extra weight of the bomb, I'd be interested to know. Looks like they don't have to be glued, so they will rotate, which is handy for positioning. But if you want to put that on the stand in flying wheels down, then you'd have to look at whether you can hide the top of the wheel inside there or not. So you might need to get some resin alternatives that are not weighted, possibly. Okay, then that's the nose cone being built up. Again, a few modifications to be made. Then we've got, that will be the tail gunner's position, I think. Be interesting to see what that looks like when it's done. Does look like that'll be movable, that one there. So separate back section goes in, and then that clips in around it. And then we've got the top gun there going on. You can see, and then we've got a little dome at the top, radio antenna, and so on. Then we're building up the famous cabin glazing. Usually that is the part that they attach separately, so it's nice to see that little bit of frame that clips around. That'll make installing that easier. Propellers will be able to rotate, so that's nice. The old-fashioned pin system, I say old-fashioned, Airfix have done a number of different arrangements with that recently, which work really well. There you go, that's the 4 propellers going on. Step 102 then takes us to the trolley. So if you wanted to show this on the ground with a ground support team, which Airfix do a kit for RAF ground support, then you could do that quite easily because you've got the trolley and you've got the bomb. So you've got an option of putting it on the trolley or mounting it on the aircraft. Now for me, we'll put it on the aircraft, but we'd probably build the trolley as well anyway. So you can see it there on the trolley. Gives you a good idea of the size of it. Be nice if they gave you 2 and you could display both. But anyway, yeah, so there it is, showing you the options for the stand. A couple of little bits going on, and that is job done. So 110 steps. Yeah. So then we're on our two paint schemes. So if I just turn this around, so you've got Flight Lieutenant Joseph Charles McCarthy, Royal Canadian Air Force, 617 Squadron, obviously, 16th and 17th of May 43. So you've got the camouflage scheme, the night black there. We can see the bomb. Looks like there are a couple of decal. That's a decal going on there. It's not very, very clear. But yeah, decal positions in red. There's quite a few of them one way or another. And then the second paint scheme, which is identical really, other than the decals, is Flight Lieutenant Robert Norman George Barlow, Australian Air Force, 617 Squadron, same date obviously, and it points out that this aircraft and the crew was lost in the action. That's our instructions. Let's have a look at the decals. So these are our decals. They are cartograph and they look really lovely. We've got our map there, our various knobbed switches and dials for the inside, and then we've got the small handful of decals really going on. You'd imagine there was more on an aircraft so big, but that's what we've got, with the two different decal options. Yeah, that looks all right, doesn't it? Okay, Sprue A, we've got our wing tops, fuselage half, and big tyres there weighted, as you can see. This is our start point for the build. It's the roof structure of the bomb bay. We've got some of the flaps there and one of the wing struts and tail tips, and I've got to say it looks lovely. I can see some really nice texturing along the flap there. Yeah, really nice. Detail looks nice on the wheel hubs, and possibly you'd argue that the panel lines are a little bit deep. Let's have a closer look at it. I can see, just flip that over, yeah, we've got a little lump of plastic there, some plastic detail on the inside, which is giving us a little bit of sink there. Nothing major. A little bit soft moulded underneath. But again, nothing major. The treadless tyres look quite nice. You could probably sand that down and build that up and sand it into shape with some milliput or something if you want to do full unweighted tyres. Again, we've got a little bit of sink. I can feel it there in the flap. You can just see that on camera. Yeah, everything else looks to be okay. You can see the shine in the light of the release agent on there. Has a sort of matte texture to the plastic. If we turn it over, we can see some of the detail there, and most crucially, only really one ejector pin mark that we probably need to clean up as possibly visible. That one won't be visible. That one might need a bit of filling, but it's not too bad, not too bad at all. Yeah, and because that's solid plastic, we've got a little bit of sink on both sides there, but not too difficult to sort out, I don't think. Sprue B, pretty much more of the same again. The other fuselage half and wheel tail tips and flaps, and wing spar. You can see there's some detail in the wing spar with some cable runs and things which clearly will be visible in the landing gear bay. We've also got what I think is the back end of those bays as well. And then we've got the lower half of the wings. So same comments apply. The panel lines look a little bit too heavy, but actually if you're brush painting, you'll fill those up nicely and it'll look really not so bad. If you're airbrushing, then they're a little bit heavy, I think. Some nice texture though. That doesn't look bad at all. The bulges all look uniform, so that's good. There's no soft moulding on this at all. It's nice and crisp. We've got little hinges there on these little, I imagine those flap down, so that's a nice touch. Lots of little detail been put into the panels, which is good to see. And this time, yeah, we've got a little bit of sink in the same place on the same flap on the opposite side. I cannot see any sink this time on the lower fuselage. Where the mould wraps round, we're getting a slightly softer mould, but it's not really causing an issue. You could choose to deepen it if you want, but actually I think I'd probably leave it. Yeah, that all looks quite nice. And well, we have an ejector pin mark there. It's very light, a little bit of Mr. Surfacer will sort that out, and a couple there. So a few more ejector pins on here. Not sure whether that one will be visible or not. So a little bit of clean up, but nothing major. Nothing major at all. There we go, weighted wheel. You can see the cable run detail on the wing spar there. And fuselage. Sprue C now, and we've got the big Bombay doors there. We've got a number of the landing gear components, the tail wheel, our pilot. I think those are for bombs. I think we might not use those, not 100% sure. And various little bits for the wings. We've got the folded down chair there, pedals, radio antenna, so some of the smaller bits as well. Yeah, so let's start with our pilot. Airfix pilots always look a little bit soft moulded. It's a little bit of seam clean up, but actually under paint he won't look bad at all. There's quite a bit of sink in these things here, which are to block out holes where turrets had been removed for the campaign with the dams. That's our landing gear doors. They look okay. Bombay doors look okay. Fairly featureless, but accurate nonetheless. Same with the tail wheel. The moulding on the landing gear is really nice and crisp. Some lovely detail on it as well. I really like that. Yeah, nothing wrong with that. Some very delicate parts there that you'll have to remove carefully. Sprue F, another large sprue. We've got all our engine nacelles on there, and they look very nice from this distance. And we've got our engine nacelle fronts there, and they look the correct shape. Sometimes you see them a little bit oversized. We've got some exhausts there, but I think we use those instead of those on this. There's various little bits to go on there. The spinners. These are the parts of the wings which fit on the back there that we saw in the instructions. The propeller spinner itself. Propellers, we seem to have more than 4 there, so I'm not quite sure what the differences are. That one seems to have a rounder blade, and that a sharper blade, so there's clearly 2 different variants going on there. And then 1 or 2 other little parts. So as we look at these, not quite sure what those are. The engine nacelles look really quite nice, they're crisp. We've got some fastener detail, which will come out nice under a wash. See where we're going to put some additional parts are clearly marked out there. Moulding is nice and crisp, no flash or anything. That's the same as we run through. Then we've got these exhausts. Like I say, I don't think we use them. Spinners moulded on the edges rather than the back end, but shouldn't be too bad to clean up. Some nice little radiator detail. And then I'm guessing there were covers for the exhaust to keep them hidden at night, I'm not sure. And then we've got our all-in-one propellers, and they're a little bit flashy, some of these. Not too bad. Obviously we've got sprue gates on the blades, which I'm not a fan of. But fundamentally, there is nothing wrong with that at all. It's just easy clean up, bang it together. This kit is tooled recent enough for it to have good tolerances. Sprue D, and a lot of this is dealing with internal parts. So we've got pilot area, we've got the gun tubs and things, and we've got some of the landing gear areas as well. So all sorts of bits and pieces, tail wheel and so on. So quite a collection of parts there. Some nice moulding on these here. Obviously a little bit heavy, but as the limitations of plastic, but that'll look all right under a wash. That'll look quite passable. There is photo etch available for this, but most of it, when you look at what Edouard do in the photo etch, goes on the inside. And if you've ever looked through a 1/72 scale cockpit of a Lancaster, there ain't much to see. So I'm not going to bother. Guns look a little heavy. I mean, you could get brass replacements, but do you really want to bother at this scale? Not sure I do. And some really nice wiring detail. I'm guessing they're fuel tanks or something. All looks very nice indeed, actually. The last grey plastic sprue is G, and that has our bouncing bomb on it and the trolley and the various bits used for modifying the aircraft. And it's very nice, lovely and crisp. I mean, we can see we've got little details. We've got some guns there. The tyres, although they're solid, they actually don't look bad at all. Really nice tread on them. We've got the little mounting point for the bomb there. A little bit of flash on it, but minor. And the frame, little pulley system. Yeah, that all looks really nice, and I love all the detail on the bomb there. Bomb ends look really nice, very authentic. Very nicely done, Airfix, thank you. And finally, we have our clear plastic parts. and they are beautifully crystal clear. Look at that. That is really nice. This is a bit foggy, but clearly that's been done on purpose. I need to understand what that is when we come to build it and understand the instructions a bit more clearly, but all the things that should be glazed are really, really clear. Our metalwork is prominent enough to be able to paint up to it, although I do have a masking set for this. And we've got some bulges there with the part around it, which makes it easier to paint. Some nice side window detail there. Distortion, not bad. Not bad. There's a little bit, but it's not bad at all. And as I suspected, it's actually not too bad. There is a tiny amount of sink in some of these bigger windows, enough for me to go, I won't bother, I'll crystal clear them. But which makes it easier for painting, actually. Yeah, nothing wrong with those. Really quite nice. So there you have it, Airfix's Avro Lancaster B.III Special, the dambusters from 617 Squadron, Operation Chastise, 17th of May 1943, with 2 decal options, not paint options. What is my first impression? Well, I think the first thing to say is this is a 2012 tool, so it's by no means one of the more recent Airfix kits, and you can see that that's the case. That the moulding is very crisp and there's some lovely detail in places, but if you compare it to their recent Wellington bomber release, you're missing some of the texture, the canning on the fuselage, for example, and you're missing the build-up of detail on the inside. So if this was a new release, yes, they'd go further than this particular release did. Having said that, I think it really does capture the aircraft very, very well. We know that it's going to be dimensionally correct because Airfix get it right, and we know that it's going to look absolutely as it should do when built up. With it being a 2012 kit, there may be 1 or 2 fit issues, but I'm not expecting any major problems. From about 2015 onwards, you can pretty much say you won't have a problem with fit, because that's when they started really getting stuck into CAD on the models. So for me, I'm not expecting any major issues with the fit of this. There was very little in the way of sink. There was virtually no flash. Moulding was crisp. So it's a simple clean it up, put it together job. Now, of the 3 offerings that Airfix currently have of an Avro Lancaster, this is the most expensive. And you might be wondering why that is, given that this is a sort of a stripped down version of the Lancaster, with bits and pieces removed to reduce the weight of it. But actually you've got the extra fret of plastic for the bomb and mounting the bomb and so on and so forth. So I imagine it comes from that. I don't think it's just profiteering because they know the dambusters one will sell. But you never know, it could be. But all in all, I think that's a nice little kit. It should build up really well. You've got everything in there that you need. I wouldn't personally be going over the top with photo etch for this particular kit. Most of it's going to go on the inside and won't be seen. Set of paint masks and maybe some resin wheels if you want them to be not weighted. And I think that probably does the job. So not a bad kit all in all. So if you're in the market for one of these, you now know what you get. I hope that was useful, informative. So enjoy your modelling, take care everyone, and I'll see you very soon.